Hello everybody, this is Tip Top MTG here today with another Magic the Gathering video. In today's video, I am going to be doing a price breakdown and giving you my thoughts on the Commander decks for Zendikar Rising. So what I'm going to do in this video is kind of break down what these Commander decks are, talk about some of my favorite cards being reprinted in them, and then talk about the overall prices of the cards in the decks as a whole. And just generally, this is kind of a review of the product. Now, before I can do that, I want to talk about what these are kind of replacing, because in the past, there were these things called Planeswalker decks, which I'm sure many of you know, but just in case you don't, they were kind of a 60-card standard product that was released alongside each set that had a really overcosted, really underpowered front legendary Planeswalker. And so what they did is that they said, hey, these aren't seeing play because, well, you can't walk into an FNM, Friday Night Magic, and play this in standard. You will literally be decimated. But, you know, Commander is a little bit more casual, a little more forgiving, and it's also an awesome way for new players to start playing the game. It kind of gives you an alternate path. You can build a deck, you can get a deck builder's toolkit if you want to start in standard, or a challenger deck if you want to start in standard. But if you want to start in, say, Commander, now we have these options for you outside of just the one Commander Precon set that we release every year. So and by the way, we do have confirmation that these will be replacing Planeswalker decks in all sets except for core sets. So we should expect to see a lot more Planeswalker a lot more Commander decks. Now, that does raise the question of the power level. These are going to be less powerful than the typical Precons, which some people consider the typical Precons to be way underpowered, which they are pretty underpowered in some ways, but these are even less so. However, they do introduce a bunch of cool new Commander cards. I believe there are 6 this time, and get some awesome reprints, and so that's what we're here to talk about today. Now, there are 3 cards in this set that I think, and when I say this set, I'm talking about the 2 Precons, that I think are really telling. And so why don't we look at those? We have, first off, these are the Commanders at the front. They are both brand new, and they both have decks built around them. So on the left, we have Anawan, who cares about rogues, and on the right, we have Obun, who cares about lands. And so, first off, they're tying really well into the theme of Zendikar Rising, making people maybe want to open more boosters to get cards that synergize with either of these two. But overall, I think that this is a good step. I think replacing the Planeswalker deck is good. I'm kind of sad when I see new players who just want to buy these Planeswalker decks, and I have to be like, no, they're not good. You don't want to really buy these. You would be better off getting a challenger deck if you can get a hold of one of those, which when Zendikar Rising comes out, they will no longer be illegal. But I think that the fact that they're discontinuing Planeswalker decks outside of core sets is really amazing. On top of that, I think that even, having a bad standard deck just feels terrible. Having a bad Commander deck can still be a ton of fun, and so I think that has some promise for it, and it also, for existing players, gets some new Commanders out there. Obviously, I think Anawan is the better one of these two, but, let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. So here's one card, Dimir Signet. Now, I think that one of the most essential parts of Commander is your mana base and your ramp. Unlike other formats, almost every deck wants to run a ramp because that's just how the game works. And so how that works for colors outside of green is generally through artifacts. And, some popular artifacts that do it. Soul Ring, the Signets, Arcane Signet, all of those are really important for decks. So if you're running a Dimir deck, there's a high chance you're running Dimir Signet. Now, this card is $2.50, which, yes, I'm not trying to say this is an expensive card. There are much more expensive cards, but for something that is so fundamental to Commander, like when you're building a Commander deck, you pretty much always include ramp. If you're in blue, it's just having the price be that high is kind of a barrier to entry. If someone's looking in and just saying, I want the essentials, I want to build a blue-black deck, and I want to see what the skeleton of that looks like, and you're like, oh, well, I need to pay $2.50 for this, and say someone's budget's only $50, that's a lot of that. So I think that getting the simple, not overly used, but the simple, used all the time ramp cards down in price is really good. But the issue is, where do you do that? How would Wizards of the Coast do that? Well, one way is to always include them in the Commander Precons, which they don't, but even if they did that, the price would still stay relatively high, similar to how Soul Ring is. And so if alongside every standard set release, and actually with Commander Legends, we are also getting Commander Precons, we get, say, a couple signets, that could slowly drive down the price of signets until they become, say, 25-cent cards, 50-cent cards. And that's where I think we reach the situation where the game is more accessible to more players, because honestly, I think that's one of the biggest issues in Magic right now is how accessible are older formats to players. And I think that by allowing, say, signets to be reprinted 4 or 5 times a year, that allows for a lot more introductory play. And similarly, we have Sol Ring, which is at $4. Again, may not seem like a lot, but when your deck has kind of a budget of $50, Sol Ring, it kind of hurts to use that as, $4 of it, when it is such a good card that almost every deck is looking for. So again, we go from one to 2 Sol Ring reprints per year to maybe up to 4 or 5. And so that should again lower the price. Now, I don't know how low Sol Ring will actually get, because I think that, it's not like, oh, every player needs just one. Everyone kind of needs one for each deck they want to build. And as more legendary creatures come out, more players are going to keep wanting Sol Ring. It's a very different thing in a non-rotating format. So I think that this card, seeing more reprints, is only a good thing. And I think it's a sign showing that Wizards of the Coast is understanding that these cards need to be more accessible to get more people to maybe start with Commander. If people are like, I need 100 cards and one of my cards costs $4, I can't afford that. But if they can be like, oh yeah, the essentials really, if you built a skeleton, Sol Ring, Dimir Signet, Arcane Signet, some lands, whatever, and you said this is like the template for a blue-black deck, now you fill in your theme, and that template costs $200, people aren't going to want to play as much as if that template costs, I don't know, 15 or 20. So that's pretty awesome. So then we also have Arcane Signet, kind of the same story here. This card is, has only been, I believe, printed twice, so from twice now up to 3 times, and a lot of what I'm saying is impacted by how much these are printed. Now, I always assumed the Planeswalker decks were printed a ton, especially into places like Walmart and Target, and if these are printed at a similar rate, this could really drive down the prices of these cards. Either way, why don't we move on to just the price breakdown. So here is on MTG Goldfish a list of every card. First off, if you haven't seen the full deck list, here they are. Now, looking through, the prices, are there anything, creatures or things here that really stick out to me? Well, first off, for those of you who don't know, right now you can pre-order one of these on Amazon for between $20 and $25. And for $20 to $25, you can get yourself an Admonition Angel, a Geode Rager, and an Omnath Locus of Rage, which are all worth more than $25. And obviously, this product should probably not be looked at as a value increaser. If this is printed into Oblivion, then the value of this will go down to about $25. But this should be looked at as a new experience for new players, and I think that works really, really well. So I'm happy that they have done this. Now, obviously, looking at other cards in here, it's nice to see some that may not have been able to be reprinted now in this. I hope it doesn't lead to confusion with, oh, this is not a standard legal deck, what do you mean, all that. But overall, this is looking pretty good. All these prices are in USD, by the way, and by Card Kingdom, so that was true of all the other prices in the video before. Overall, I think that this is a really good step. First off, having the value when they're announced be higher than the price of the product is something that's never happened for a Planeswalker deck. So even if you are just looking at this from a veteran player perspective, which you probably are because you are watching YouTube videos on it, but maybe not, it is already looking better. But looking at it from, say, a new player's perspective, these decks are really awesome. They can really feel like they're getting their money's worth, and then they're not just getting this meh deck that they'll use for, a couple times and then realize this is really bad and just ditch it. So I think that this is a good step forward. Moving into the sneak attack, also you'll notice here it's about $100 and something, $107, $108 for both of these decks, and I think that you're getting 4 times the value of cards. Now, obviously, a lot of those are made up of, 5-cent cards, which is obviously something you have to think about, but there are a decent amount of cards in here. We have Heirloom Blade, we have Commander Sphere, Arcane Signet. Seeing Commander Sphere reprint is really awesome. Lots of really great cards in here. We have Necromantic Selection, and of course, the commanders themselves are worth between $4 and $5. Obviously, these are likely to fall, like I said, if these are printed a ton, which which they probably will be, you know, these are going to go down to about $25 a box, a $25 a booster, but or not a booster, not a box, $25 a deck. And I think that if you are a new player, and maybe you found me through my MTG Arena Color Guide Challenge, this is a product I can legitimately recommend to you. And that's something that I've noticed a lot this year. Wizards of the Coast is looking towards newer players a lot more. For instance, we used to have the Spellsinger Starter Kit. That was in awful packaging. I wouldn't have recommended it to anyone. But now the new MTG Arena Starter Kit, the physical one, is now a product that I think is awesome for new players. And these commander decks are a clear step up from the Planeswalker decks. And that's my general overall thoughts of it. Even if this was only $30 worth of value, which I think would be a lot more limiting, but it is pretty awesome here. Now, by the way, all the prices on this one are on Magic Online prices. That was a mistake on my part. But if you look in the upper right, you can see $108 in paper. So yes, that is going to do it for this video. I know it may have been a rambly one, but I just really wanted to get my thoughts out there on the new Commander deck product. I probably won't do too much of this in the future unless they make changes or if there's something really interesting in them. I expect the cards I talked about here, you know, you can kind of just translate that into future sets. But yeah, I hope you enjoy it. Leave your thoughts on Commander decks in other sets in the comments down below, and I will see you in the next one.